Before the opening crawl of Mass Effect 2, Miranda Lawson and the Elusive Man sit in Cerberus's base of operations and have a discussion about Commander Shepard. Miranda refers to Shepard as a bloody icon. She views Shepard as a hero. This may be perceived as a throwaway line simply to pump up the idea of Shepard as a hero, and to illustrate Cerberus's commitment to the idea of bringing Shepard to their cause. But how did we get here? Miranda makes this statement for a reason. By looking back at Mass Effect 1, we know that Miranda is referring to this moment. Just prior, we defeated and indoctrinated and upgraded Saren, and we were responsible for the Human Alliance fleet taking out Sovereign, resulting in the Council being saved and the gates to a Reaper-filled dark space remaining closed. What are the events of Mass Effect 1 that shape the first human Spectre and influence Shepard into becoming the hero of the Citadel and an icon of humanity? Shepard is able to achieve iconic status within the fictional world of Mass Effect by overcoming obstacles presented to him or her. But the roadblocks presented on the Commander's hero's journey are laid out in a unique way. Completing the hero's journey was only possible because of one of Mass Effect's crowning achievements, one of its themes and constant avenues in which it presents its storytelling. This is how Commander Shepard, a human, a fish out of water, now a member of a vast galactic community of dozens of alien races, is presented to us, the gamers, through its storytelling. Given this was Casey Hudson's first original IP and a planned trilogy, the first game had to be presented in a way that would hook gamers for not just one game, but to keep them interested and excited for the next two games to come. Science fiction can be tricky to land. It needs to be grounded but also filled with enough fantastical elements to make its science fiction identity appealing. With the completion of the amazing Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 4 years prior to Mass Effect 1's release, Hudson and his team decided to steer away from the fantasy side of sci-fi that is present in the Star Wars IP. To counter this, Hudson's approach to quote-unquote space magic with Mass Effect would be more grounded and practical. Instead of explaining away sci-fi and fantastical abilities through the Force or spirituality, Hudson and the team asked themselves, what if the science fiction IP they were creating existed as an extension of our own timeline, happening in the not-too-distant future, and not happening in a galaxy far, far away, but in our own Milky Way galaxy? How could Mass Effect be presented to the gamers as being a realistic possibility set in the future of the galaxy we know? To accomplish this, Mass Effect is presented as hard sci-fi. Hard science fiction is not the inclusion of aliens, ships, space travel, and unique technology or abilities. Yes, these things are cool, and Mass Effect has them in spades. But hard sci-fi argues that the story should use these elements of the science fiction genre to give credibility to the viewers, or in this case, the gamers. That everything in this science fiction universe could theoretically be possible and even practical. What BioWare did is double down on the practicality of their newly designed universe, shedding the mysticism and fantastical elements like spiritual chi that the Spirit Monk and the Force that Revan used in their respective games, Jade Empire and KOTOR, the two games BioWare produced before Mass Effect 1, and pursued a more grounded approach to the combat principles that bind physical space and overall rules within their new IP. Their hard science fiction approach to world building not only explained how individuals could practically use quote-unquote space magic with the introduction of Element Zero, dark matter, biotic implants, and the manipulation of Mass Effect fields, but more importantly gave us a more humanistic way in which we could relate to the character of Shepard. Shepard is not a super soldier like the Spartan 2s from the Halo universe, or Space Marines from the Warhammer franchise. Neither is Shep a Jedi that can use the Force to eliminate their enemies. Shepard is a regular human who displays not only heroic feats but also vulnerability. Shepard experiences defeats along his or her hero's journey. He shows other human emotions. She's funny. She gets annoyed. Her emotions boil over and she loses patience. This relatability to us, regular human beings, paired with BioWare's grounded approach to its world building, provides us the foundation we need to relate to Shep, to see a bit of us within him or her, to laugh at the way the commander dances, to chuckle at the renegade options that we can reply with, and to triumph in our glory when we, a regular human, defeat a 1,000-year-old Asari matriarch at the prime of her existence, or stop a machine-enhanced Turian rogue specter in the final moments of impending doom. I could go on and list dozens more examples of what makes Shepard special to so many of us. To pull out a bit and take Miranda's statement about Shepard into the real world, Shepard has become an icon to so many of us gamers. We find comfort in coming back to the Mass Effect trilogy when current games disappoint us. We laugh at the memes, and we appreciate the many fan creations of our beloved characters. Just like the real world, Shepard is an icon to us for so many reasons. The same can be said when looking at the events of Mass Effect 1. There are many in-game reasons as to what made Shepard an icon in this first game of the trilogy. Was it when she saved or killed the Rachni Queen? Was it when she punched Khalisah al-Jalani in the face during her interview? Was it when he became the first human Spectre? To focus on all of Shepard's accomplishments, the feats that made him truly iconic would be a disservice. Focusing on everything would result in not focusing on anything at all. Therefore, my focus will be on a handful of events and topics that I believe contribute to Miranda's summation at the start of ME2. As we go, let me know if yours are the same as mine, and drop a comment stating what some of Shepard's most iconic moments in Mass Effect 1 are to you. With all that and nothing left for us to do but to jump into things, let's take a deep dive and look at my defining pillars of Shepard's iconic path during the events of Mass Effect 1. Mass Effect's world building begins immediately after the iconic title screen and Vigil theme song is heard. We are taken into the Alliance military personnel database to dive into the top secret profile of John or Jane Shepard. We learn the Alliance is the humans' military branch of unified worlds, colonies, and outposts. After our construction of Shepard's facial appearance, class, and background information, the opening crawl occurs. We come to an understanding that the game's title, Mass Effect, is an adverb-verb combination describing the massive effect the leap forward in technology had for humans when the Prothean ruins on Mars were founded in 2148. Because each species' discovery of Prothean technology and the mass relays within their respective systems are the basis for this leap forward in technological advancement, it is laid out to us that this is the reason the species across the Milky Way galaxy eventually come together. Their respective discoveries of the relays within their systems allow them access either to the Citadel or other relays that eventually lead to the Citadel. This gives reason to how a dozen or so evolved civilizations amongst a sea of billions upon billions of stars are able to find each other. We are told that as humans, the mass relay humanity discovered, the Charon relay, was encased in ice and orbits Pluto. When humanity discovered the Prothean ruins on Mars in 2148, there was documentation about mass relays, but this technology was thought to be out of reach for humans. However, with its discovery, originally thought to be a moon orbiting Pluto, the Charon relay gave humanity access to the overarching galaxy of different aliens. John Grissom led a team of men and women through the Charon relay only to discover an array of more relays. With their eventual return, Grissom formed the Systems Alliance, and humanity eventually made contact with the Turian species in what would become known as the First Contact War. At this point, humanity was not aware of the wider number of species, not aware of the Council and other aliens. Humanity only understood themselves as a species that came after the Protheans, an evolved civilization that spanned across their own Milky Way galaxy that lived tens of thousands of years before them. Once humanity and the Turian conflict of the First Contact War concluded with the intervention of the Asari and the Greater Citadel Council, humanity's true understanding of their place in the greater galactic community finally crystallized. With a peace between the two species of the First Contact War, humans and Turians, achieved through the facilitation and help of the Asari, humanity could now play a proper part in the galaxy. We understand there is still animosity between the two militaristic species, humans and Turians, that came about through the First Contact War. This makes sense, but it's mature of BioWare to also show this animosity does not paralyze their ability to mend both literal and figurative wounds left over from the First Contact War. And for the most part, by the time Mass Effect 1 occurs, animosity only remains through remarks referencing misguided apprehension or hate from one species to the next. Turians, the species that has been within the galactic community longer than humans, seem to hold less of a grudge towards their First Contact War enemies, as it's mainly only the humans, Shepard included, who make these offhand remarks. However, no real love is lost between the two, and the inclusion of these remarks simply exists to show that there was a conflict prior to the events of Mass Effect, further establishing the galaxy that we, the player, are coming into. Peace brokered between humans and Turians through an all-female species of Asari woman occurred so that the escalating warring factions would not threaten peaceful galactic space. BioWare further answers what an all-female species of aliens would look and act like. Without constant interruption of the egotistical male influence, a species of all-female individuals would be quite compassionate. They would have the capacity to negotiate peace between both species. And once that peace was achieved and humans were brought into the fray, what would humans eventually do? One would only have to look at our own human history, our wars, our dictators, the way we operate, to understand the simple answer. Humans would want to expand further. They would want their place amongst the other species, and they would ultimately want their place on the Citadel Council so that they could hold ultimate influence and power. And now we can understand the need for Shepard to exist. By the time Mass Effect 1 starts, we come to realize that Shepard exists as the culmination of humanity's efforts for their own species to play a greater role within the galactic community. Shepard becoming a Spectre, an agent of the Special Tactics and Reconnaissance Division that serves the Council, formed to help maintain stability across the galaxy, eventually becomes the way Udina and Captain Anderson see humanity gaining more power. This is the logical step that sends Shepard on his hero's journey across the entire trilogy, and for the first game in the series, pushes Shepard and subsequently us the gamers through our first series of events that help us give an understanding of who our Shepard will become. As Shepard, we're eventually given command of the Normandy, the fastest ship in the Alliance, and the only ship with a drive core that allows for cloaking abilities. With the knowledge of Geth activity outside the Perseus Veil, we can navigate to those regions of the star clusters on the galaxy map. Although the freedom to navigate first either to Pharos to encounter the Thorian, Therum to recruit Liara, or Noveria to encounter the Rachni Queen and Matriarch Benezia is a liberating feeling. By itself, it is not hugely impactful on the overall feeling of Shepard becoming a hero. However, I would argue that choices like these, as well as others that are a direct result of what occurs on your missions, reporting to the Council, checking on squad mates after missions, I'm looking at you, Liara, you're always not up to the snuff, are you? It's these decisions, again, very minor, but when added together over the course of the game, build up over time and do result in a feeling of autonomy. This, paired with the lack of any real accountability over these choices made by Shepard, result in us feeling like a space version of James Bond. As a Spectre, this license to kill and the lack of anyone to answer to, even the Council, who we do supposedly answer to, the M to our James Bond, can totally be disregarded by either disconnecting from them mid-report, never opening a line of communication to them in the first place, or even by letting them die during Sovereign's culminating attack on the Citadel, provides the gamer the feeling of empowerment. But this is just scratching the surface of what gives us the feeling of heroism. In Solitude, Shepard is just that, a space James Bond, that can come across as egotistical and arrogant, but give her or him a mix of alien comrades to interact with, and we begin to see Shepard's greatest attribute exhibited, the Commander's influence over crew and comrades. Any fan of the Mass Effect trilogy will tell you there are a handful of things at the core of its identity. Shepard's impact across all three games, the companions you interact with, the effects of the choices you make, and the truly unique dialogue options that are presented to us are just a few. As either a no-holds-bar renegade or an altruistic paragon, what we can say as Shepard are some of the funniest, outlandish, and sometimes just messed up things in all of video games. But they can also be inspiring and show Shepard's altruistic abilities. The vast number of dialogue options alone that only he or she would say make Shep an icon within the galaxy. No one talks or does things to the NPCs of Mass Effect quite like Shepard.
You can't go firing your weapon at everything that moves. What the hell's wrong with you? How do I shut this thing up? You're a bean counter, Zhang. I'm a Spectre. Tell me, how good are those odds?
You cannot silence the truth. My voice must be heard.
Sorry doesn't help your victims.
No! No!
This time, stay dead.
Here's a tip. 2 eyes, human. 4 eyes, Batarian.
That was incredible, Shepard.
Ready for round 2?
Commander?
But where we see more impact on Shepard achieving iconic status is through his or her interactions with the squad mates of the Normandy. BioWare's greatest strength is with writing incredible companion characters to the main protagonists of their games. And although what a squad member could be wasn't quite perfected until Mass Effect 2, with the inclusion of a whopping 12 optional crew members to choose from, the introduction of loyalty missions, deeper dialogue branches to go down, and a culminating suicide mission that was dependent on the relationships Shepard established with his or her companions in earlier acts of the game, ME1 still accomplished a lot in terms of the squad mates and laid the groundwork for the companion system that was so cherished throughout the entire trilogy. The interactions with the companions of the first game have effects that influence the course of the immediate events leading up to Sovereign's attack on the Citadel. Additionally, the relationship Shepard forms with each character from the first game sees a greater and earned payoff in Mass Effect 3, as Shepard brings the final fight against Harbinger and the Reapers. Rex brings along the Krogans, Garrus helps facilitate the Turian aid, Liara the Asari, but also those she holds influence over when she eventually becomes the Shadow Broker, and Tali the Quarians. But this wouldn't be possible without Shepard's actions here and now. Shepard is eventually won over by Rex through bringing him to find his family armor and offering him empathy and understanding when he learns of a potential cure to the genophage on Vermeer. Shepard is the one who pushes Garrus to pursue Spectre status again, and to take revenge towards the Solarian Dr. Hart. Shepard listens to Tali share about her pilgrimage and the troubling history between the Quarian and the Geth. And it's Liara who teaches Shepard of Asari culture, melds with him, and can choose to pursue a romantic relationship with her before following Saren to Ilos. And although an icon typically achieves such status by their actions on a more macro level, it is arguably these interactions, the one at a micro and individual level between Shepard and these iconic characters in their own right, that laid the groundwork for the realization of what a squad member could be in Mass Effect 2, and the eventual persuasion of each squad member's respective race in ME3 to join Shepard's fight against the Reapers in the trilogy's ultimate conclusion. These individual relationships are at the core of Mass Effect as an IP, and through their interactions with Shepard, these characters help prop Shepard up to heroic status. Jumping into the story proper and really understanding what occurs on each of the main campaign's planets, Eden Prime, Noveria, Pharos, Virmire, and Ilos, is where we see the most notable impact Shepard has on both the resolution to the confrontation with Saren and Sovereign, and how what Shepard learns in ME1 affects the eventual invasion of the Reapers in the trilogy's conclusion. Upon learning the massive amount of exposition told from Sovereign on Virmire, Vigil on Ilos, and Saren on Virmire and the Citadel, one can look at the prior events of the game and history of the galaxy with greater clarity and appreciate Shepard's importance to the plot. Shepard arrives on Virmire split up from the Spectre Nihilus, but with an understanding the two will meet at a rendezvous point. Upon coming over the crest of a small overlook, we are presented our first glimpse at what will grow into Shepard's nemesis through the course of the trilogy, the Reapers. In this instance, the one sole Reaper left in occupied space within the Milky Way galaxy, Sovereign. It departs from the location of the Prothean beacon, lifting upward with glows of red electrical currents and a trail of imposing dark smoke. Not at this instance, but later on Virmire, one of the later planets we navigate to on the galaxy map, we learn through a conversation we have with Sovereign that the Reapers are a race of sentient machines, with a self-proclaimed transcendent existence incomprehensible to mere mortal organics. The Reapers do not serve anyone or are not motivated by organic conventions, but instead function to cleanse the galaxy of all life every 50,000 years. These are known as cycles. 50,000 years ago, the Protheans, the civilization responsible for leaving the Prothean runes discovered by humanity on Mars in 2148, were wiped out by the Reapers, and now the Reapers, through Sovereign and Saren's actions, prepare to initiate the purge of the current cycle, the one here and now that Shepard inhabits. At this point in the trilogy, the Reaper's existence has not fully been fleshed out by BioWare. Details told through the storytelling of Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3's base game, and most importantly the Leviathan DLC reveal much greater detail about the Reaper's origins and purpose. Therefore, in Mass Effect 1, we have a limited understanding of the Reapers. However, the main takeaway communicated to Shepard through the combined dialogue of Sovereign, Vigil, and Saren are that the Reapers will inevitably wipe out Shepard's current cycle. The Reapers bring an inevitable end to organic life. Sovereign imposes the Reaper's will, informing Shepard and his squad that organics are nothing but a mutation, while they, the Reapers, are the pinnacle of evolution. The Reapers view organic evolution as chaos, while they impose order, stemming out organic life so that the uncertainties of organic evolution never progress to an uncontrolled state. The cyclical extinction of all life every 50,000 years ensures the organics who exist in each cycle are never killed off through artificial intelligence or creations that they create. This ensures that organic life persists throughout future cycles. This is not explained to us until Mass Effect 3, and for now in Mass Effect 1, Sovereign explains this as Reapers simply needing to keep organic life in check. BioWare expands on this story thread in their sequels, and it eventually comes to the point of what it is explained as in Mass Effect 3. Sovereign's role is to be the observer of organic civilizations and the gatekeeper for the greater number of Reapers that wait in dark space, just out of reach of organic occupied space. The Reapers waiting in dark space are in an inactive state to conserve energy, where they remain for 50,000 years at a time. Once the organic life in new cycles evolve and grow to a point, Sovereign eventually deems them ready to be cleansed, which at this time, it sends a signal to the Keepers, the race of custodial organics that maintain the Citadel, theorized to be the first organic species harvested by the Reapers. Once the Keepers receive Sovereign's signal, they execute their hidden function, which is to use the Citadel for its true purpose, revealed to be an actual relay itself that leads to dark space. Once signaled, the Keepers activate the Citadel and the Reapers pour into occupied space, and begin their destruction of the organics of that cycle. Returning to Eden Prime, as Sovereign departs, Nihilus is betrayed by Saren, and Shepard makes it to the Prothean beacon. With the information learned from Vigil on Ilos again, not at this point, but much later in the last act of ME1, we come to understand the beacon as part of a communication system used by the Protheans in the prior cycle. Vigil, a Prothean virtual intelligence, was created to oversee the continuation of a secret underground scientific facility, created during the Prothean cycle as a contingency plan by the Greater Prothean Society. This contingency plan, born from the Protheans' understanding of the inevitable end to their societies across the Milky Way galaxy, included a procedure that was thought to ensure the continuation of the Prothean species after the Reapers finished their cleansing and returned to dark space. First, to ensure the secret underground facility would not be found by the Reapers, all data on the existence of this secret underground facility on Ilos would be wiped clean. During the Prothean cycle, the Reapers were able to learn of every Prothean civilization spread across the galaxy through the data on the Citadel, but all information of the secret underground facility on Ilos was deleted so that Reapers would not find its location. Next, the facility would be built with the intention of being the Protheans' second chance at life. The facility on Ilos held hundreds if not thousands of Protheans in cryosleep, so that they could be awakened by Vigil after the Reapers had completed the genocide of the greater Prothean race and returned to dark space. Once this occurred, the Protheans in cryosleep would be awakened. With the Milky Way galaxy free of Reapers, the Protheans could repopulate and start anew. But the Protheans responsible for creating this contingency plan theorized the Reaper destruction of every Prothean civilization across the galaxy would occur faster than what actually played out. Vigil explains to Shepard that the eradication, the genocide of the entire Prothean people within the Milky Way galaxy, took centuries to complete by the Reapers. This slow process was not anticipated, and as a result, the facility could not maintain enough power to keep all Protheans in cryosleep alive. This miscalculation of time led to Vigil shutting off pods of non-essential personnel. As the years of time continued and the Reapers of the Prothean cycle continued to slowly eradicate all life, Vigil was forced to shut off more and more pods until only a few of the essential scientists in cryosleep remained. Finally, the Reapers finished their destruction and returned to dark space, with Sovereign remaining, waiting to once again signal the Reapers for the next cycle that would happen 50,000 years from then. Once the Reapers were gone, Vigil then reanimated the remaining Protheans, but only a dozen or so remained, too few to start and sustain a new civilization. This group of Protheans used the beacons, one of their forms of transgalactic communication, to carry a message across the Milky Way galaxy, a warning about the Reapers to whoever else remained in the galaxy. In the years that remained, with an understanding there was no future for their race, they instead turned their focus on finding a way to break the cycle, so the civilization that evolved next would not meet their same fate. The small group of Prothean scientists labored at trying to alter the signal the Keepers received from Sovereign to prevent them from activating the Citadel during the next cycle. Unfortunately, the scientists needed a way to get onto the Citadel in order to experiment on the Keepers and the signal they received. To accomplish this, they created the Conduit, a one-direction-only miniature mass relay that, once constructed by the scientists, brought them to the Citadel. They knew this was a one-way trip, and this sacrifice was done for the hopes of the civilizations of the next cycle. Once on the Citadel, they were successful with altering the Keepers. They ensured that during the next cycle, the Keepers would not activate the Citadel when Sovereign sent the signal. Therefore, the gate to dark space where the Reaper fleet awaited would not be opened. While speaking with Vigil, it theorizes that after this great accomplishment to save the next cycle of organics, the scientists most likely died a slow death on the Citadel, marking a noble end of self-sacrifice of the Prothean race. Of course, until we meet Javik in Mass Effect 3. Now with this understanding, we can see how Shepard plays into the beacons, Ilos, and the conduit. As Ashley is lifted by the beacon in what appears to be a perilous state, Shepard dives at her, throwing her away, and in Shepard's eyes, saves her life. The energy from the beacon latches out onto the organic being in front of it and gives Shepard the signal. At this point in time, Shepard cannot make sense of the warning message. Because it cannot be decrypted or understood, the focus remains on Saren and the combined efforts of Shepard and his new allies. Rex, Garrus, and most importantly Tali, eventually proves Saren has gone rogue. Shepard presents the evidence to the Council, and Udina and Anderson see making Shepard becoming a Spectre as the first step for humanity in securing a more influential foot in the dynamics of interspecies play on a galactic level. Shepard becomes a Spectre, and with this new power is able to travel in the Normandy to Therum, Noveria, Pharos, and soon after Virmire. Therum is a planet we can travel to simply to recruit Liara, young Asari scientist of only 106 years of age, turned eventual shadow broker by the ending events of Mass Effect 2, and one of the trilogy's most iconic squad members in her own right. But for the length of Mass Effect 1, one of her most important contributions is the biotic ability she shares with Shepard when performing her mind meld, once she realizes she can help interpret the message Shepard carries from the beacon. From this point on, the antagonists that are presented on Shepard's journey begin to be neutralized and cut down as Shepard barrels towards the first showdown with Saren on Virmire. Before that, Shepard confronts Lady Benezia on Noveria, and after her defeat, we come to one of Shepard's first executive decisions over the fate of an entire species, the interactions and conversations with the Rachni Queen. If Noveria is the player's first choice, the decision on whether to kill or set free the Rachni Queen is the first real meaningful decision-making moment of the Paragon Renegade system presented to us by BioWare. I was always a fan of this system, as I thought it was more nuanced than the dark side, light side system of KOTOR. In Mass Effect, the Paragon choices were not always super aligned to altruism, and to counter this, some of the Renegade choices were less evil but more funny and blunt. There seemed to always be shreds of interpretation that could be read between the lines of what Shepard actually said, and I loved that. And probably the most rewarding RPG element of the game involved the ability to spend experience points in Charm or Intimidate. Opening up another dialogue option based on how much experience you had invested in either Charm or Intimidate, plus the amount of the corresponding Paragon or Renegade gauge, was simply fantastic. This gauge was challenging to fill up as it was based on previous and conversations, these interactions resulting in points that automatically filled the gauge over time. It was an incredible RPG gameplay element that helped show your unique Shepard's personality and growth over time, and it led to some truly unique dialogue options and character choices that our Shepard could deploy. Saving the Rachni Queen was always a noble thing to do, and definitely more of a believable option considering her explanation of reasons to why the Rachni on Noveria were hostile. But man, what a guilty pleasure it was to purge the Rachni from existence and gain that huge amount of Renegade points. Whatever the choice made over the Rachni Queen, you could feel like such a noble hero in this moment, or an incredibly narrow-minded jerk. This often first opportunity to make such a drastic impact on the state of the entire galaxy, whether or not Rachni life can continue on again, gives the player a feeling of empowerment that shows the galaxy what type of person our Shepard is coming to be, their iconic choices they will be known for. The decision on Pharos to kill or let live the colonists of Zoo's Hope and the Asara Shiala do not have such a macro-level impact. If Shepard chooses to let them live, by the time of the Reaper invasion in ME3, they have developed into a powerful offensive unit that is immune to Reaper indoctrination due to the thorian exposure they experience on Pharos. Shepard can choose to either save or kill the Zoo's Hope colonists, but the real point of coming to Pharos lies in the thorian underneath Zoo's Hope. Our encounter with the thorian reveals the next iteration in our understanding of the story. It seems the Reapers, even in all their thoroughness, overlooked the thorian, as it is an organic that spanned across multiple cycles. As Shiala explains to Shepard, it lived at a time when the Protheans were the evolved and dominant species within the Milky Way galaxy. As a creature that observed them, it knew their culture, their language, and their way of life. Saren's involvement on Pharos included using Shiala. Through her biotic ability to mind meld, Saren used her to take the knowledge the Thorian had of the Protheans, to give to him. This knowledge and understanding of the Protheans serves as the cipher, the ability to make sense of and understand the message from the beacons. Saren was after the cipher because, like Shepard, he was given the message from the beacon on Eden Prime. When we talk to Shiala on Pharos at this point in the game, if we have recruited Liara and gone to another planet prior, we would have experienced embracing eternity, so Shiala's mind melding with Shepard would not be as shocking. But before I go on, I want to pause here and acknowledge everything we've been given so far in the plot and story and appreciate it through one of the topics we covered earlier, the lens of hard sci-fi. We've been given some very literal and figuratively alien content, the beacons, the Rachni, biotic abilities, and mind control of the Thorian, to name just a few. The BioWare team that worked on the Mass Effect trilogy is often celebrated for the characters they created or the iterative combat mechanics that became so enjoyable by the time the third installment came around. But I believe something they don't get as much credit for that they do and should deserve is the amount of world building they did with the first game of the trilogy. Not only is there such a breadth of information on all of the species and planets of the galaxy, but it is presented to us in a way that is relatable because its explanation leaves us with the impression that even its most fantastical and sci-fi elements could be plausible. And here is where we come to probably the most fantastical element of the trilogy, the Asari's abilities when melding with another individual. Through this ability, Shiala is able to transfer all of the Thorian's understanding of the Prothean civilization into Shepard's mind. Now, Shepard is seemingly the only human in the entire galaxy to have this Prothean knowledge. However, the message in the beacon is still unclear to Shepard, and the team decides to move on. The Council is kind enough to share the location of more Geth activity, occurring on the planet Vermeer. Once there, we are presented with arguably the most important decision of the game. Rex is one of my favorite characters. He has a tremendous arc revealed over the course of the trilogy. I always made it official canon in my head that Rex is with me through the end of the trilogy, and therefore imperative that Rex be kept alive on Vermeer. The Paragon Renegade option that appears if you have enough skill points invested in either corresponding meter, and the dialogue option that is available if you previously found Rex's family armor, allow for you to keep Rex alive. I always felt shooting Rex was simply too cold. Even for a Renegade option, putting down a squad member seemed to be crossing the line, and never felt right for my Shepard to do. Definitely not heroic, and not the type of icon that I would be proud of. Miranda probably wouldn't mind though, since she works for the Human First organization Cerberus. But for me, for my Shepard, Rex being alive is an essential part to feeling iconic. As Shepard, we are able to bring the most hardened member of the toughest species of the galaxy around to hear things out my way, and understand that I was his friend, and that Saren was wrong for wanting to cure the genophage, only to breed an army of enslaved Krogan. Rex's acknowledgement of Shepard as his commander in this situation was the start to the ability Shepard possesses and develops. Through this action, Shepard is the only human capable of bringing Rex back to his cause. This evolves, and Shepard later is able to bring together the numerous species of the Milky Way galaxy by the trilogy's end. Yes, you can still accomplish this by working with Reeve instead of Rex in Mass Effect 2 and 3, but to not have Rex there in the subsequent games just doesn't feel right. Not having Rex there makes Shepard a little less iconic. With Rex secure, Shepard moves through Saren's base on Virmire, and although there is supposed to be another Virmire-shattering decision Shepard is forced to take, the decision to choose Kaidan or Ash never seemed to bring up as much of an emotional impact as my prior decision with Rex did. One of Mass Effect's narrative themes has to do with diversity. The diversity of aliens and individual emotions of the characters of ME1 alone are incredibly vast. Due to Ashley's xenophobia, it was always challenging for me to give her a chance, to let her in and get to know her. I know she has a rich family legacy of military service, and she has a fun dynamic she shares with her sisters. But her hard disdain for my alien comrades present a tough roadblock to overcome, especially considering this prominent theme of Mass Effect. Because the greater trilogy even eventually becomes about recruiting vastly different and dysfunctional individuals to form a Dirty Dozen in ME2, and then turns into recruiting entire races of species, sometimes based on the relationships you form with individuals of said species in ME3, Ashley's place in Shepard's pursuit of recruitment and alliances make her existence in later games often troubling to me. And I understand Kaidan's somber and overall quiet tone. He experiences excruciating pain due to his L2 implants, but doesn't want to be seen as a burden to the crew, let alone Shepard. So Kaidan often is soft-spoken. He steers away from talking loudly or getting attention because he doesn't want to give off a vibe of being a weak complainer when his L2 implants inevitably result in crippling pain. His solution is to keep to himself, out of sight, so that when the pain does arise, he can deal with it out of sight of others. But it's because of these character traits of my two human companions that always resulted in me not quite caring who I send or leave to die when the Geth reinforcements come on Virmire. But I guess that's the big takeaway. If we're analyzing just what it took for Shepard to obtain iconic status, it's the fact that even the two squad mates that I held the least connection to were ready to die for their commander. The influence Shepard has over our crew and squad mates echoes from the decision made at Virmire. Kaidan or Ashley, in the instance of their death and willing self-sacrifice for their commander, demonstrate to the new comrades over the next two games Shepard's legendary status. Backtracking to the conversations with the Asari scientists and Sovereign on Virmire, we are able to learn more information, particularly with what Saren's motivations and actions are as they pertain to a topic we have not quite covered yet in detail: indoctrination. I, along with so many others, were riding the highs of the indoctrination theory after ME3's release back in 2012. I remember both that magical and frustrating time when so many fans in their scorn of the finale's ending latched on to the indoctrination theory, settled in the notion that everything after Marauder Shields was Harbinger's attempt at indoctrinating Shepard. And although this theory would have been satisfying to see, as the topic of indoctrination was set up so beautifully with its introduction here in the first game, we hear exposition on how it works, we see Saren's attempt to not fall victim to indoctrination, and we eventually see his complete collapse into it. Just imagine how poetic it would have been to see this attempt at Shepard's mind play out, only for Shepard to triumphantly overcome the indoctrination attempts of Harbinger, and carry out some final heroic accomplishment that could have been that much more satisfying than the choose your color palette ending we originally got. But that's such an old rabbit hole to go down. With the extended ending and the Citadel DLC, we still were able to experience joys and wonderful emotions that provided us a satisfying close to the greatest video game trilogy of all time. And even though the idea of indoctrination was, in my opinion, not explored fully enough in the trilogy, how it was presented here on Virmire as one of the Reaper's most diabolical tools to deploy against organics was still so incredible. On Virmire, we learn the somewhat tragic nature to Saren's inevitable fall into complete indoctrination, Although Saren initially made the choice to be in servitude of Sovereign and the Reapers, to show and prove to them that organics can have their place and be useful, Saren was unable to see that even if he serves the Reapers, they would eventually eradicate him, as he was ultimately an organic that needed to be cleansed. And Saren was even more short-sighted because he was unable to realize the length at which Sovereign had already gone to indoctrinate him. Prior to this, Saren believed his saving grace was that his usefulness was perceived by Sovereign above all else, and therefore he would not be indoctrinated, as indoctrinated individuals will eventually become a useless husk of their original self. Therefore, Saren believed his autonomy was allowed to remain. But Saren was smart. He knew Sovereign's indoctrination would soon spread to him through their proximity to one another. Saren therefore used the facilities on Vermeer to not only breed an enslaved Krogan army, but more importantly to study the effects of indoctrination, in hopes of finding a way to shield himself from Sovereign. Unfortunately, these efforts were never fully realized. We can see Saren's collapse into complete indoctrination when we meet him for the second time in the council chambers on the Citadel. What is truly sad is that while on Vermeer, Saren believed his actions would save lives. By banding together with the Reapers, he hoped to show them organics could be useful, and perhaps be spared when the inevitable invasion came. But by the time we encounter Saren at the Citadel, he shares with Shepard he has been upgraded, now more fused with machine parts, but unaware to himself he has been more indoctrinated. Saren cannot come to see this and still believes he is acting autonomously. If invested deep enough into the Paragon or Renegade meter, Shepard can get through to Saren briefly and attempt to pull him out of his indoctrination, but this is a rare instance. The meter must be filled almost completely, and in most instances, Shepard's Paragon or Renegade dialogue choice to persuade Saren is not an option. In this culminating event, the last conversation we have with our Arturian antagonist is presented to us to pull Saren out of his indoctrination at an almost unobtainable state for a couple of reasons. First is to demonstrate just how strong indoctrination is. Saren has been exposed to Sovereign for an extended period of time. He's interacted with Sovereign in close proximity all throughout ME1. We are being told that almost nothing can save an indoctrinated individual. Only through Shepard's ability of persuasion, if the player has invested enough time, dropping skill points into the Charm or Intimidate branch of the skill tree, and if the player has invested time interacting with individuals and squad mates, honing their ability to persuade others through Shepard's iconic dialogue options, is this possible. And this leads us to the second reason, and why I believe BioWare was so adamant about sticking with their ending and putting an end to the indoctrination theory. It's because Shepard is a legend, an icon, and a hero. By the end of the trilogy, Shepard has had by far the most exposure to the Reapers when compared to any other individual. Through the confrontations with Sovereign in ME1, to being persistently pestered by Harbinger via the Collector Generals in ME2, to the full-on invasion of Harbinger and thousands of other Reaper encounters in ME3, any other individual would have been indoctrinated already. But this is what puts Shepard above other humans, above all other individuals of the galaxy. The final dialogue option is only accessible if our Shepard has become the best of the best in how they communicate with others. If Shepard achieves the ability to pull Saren out of indoctrination, it shows us what really is behind Shepard's distinctness. Shepard's ability to pull someone from the grips of indoctrination, if only for a short period of time, foreshadows Shepard's power wielded over indoctrination. Shepard is insulated from it, and although Shepard experienced hints of indoctrination attempts by Harbinger in the trilogy's final installment, with the dreams of the kid on Earth, these are only attempts. Because this dialogue option happens in ME1, and we don't realize the magnitude of what having these final Paragon or Renegade options available is, it's hard to see how foundational this is to who Shepard is. Although the Mass Effect trilogy is filled with terrific action set pieces that get more grand with each installment, and the combat was iterated through each game to give us a more dynamic and fun experience by the final game of the trilogy, Mass Effect is really about dialogue. BioWare presents us with options that allows us to make impactful relationships and persuade entire species to our cause. We're given dialogue options that make us laugh at what Shepard says and feel inspired by how he or she delivers a motivating speech. In our final moment with Saren and our immediate decision after to either save the Council or let them die, the choices we make through dialogue options like these illustrate Shepard's ultimate power. By Mass Effect 1's conclusion, we learn that Shepard is a hero by these actions. As the gamer, we're given the opportunity to make galaxy-wide decisions that reverberate through to the trilogy's end. We eventually come to know that Shepard's will is near indomitable, even in the face of indoctrination. The relationships he or she has made, the Prothean knowledge obtained, and Shepard's ability to command loyal followers make the commander a hero, nay, an icon. Thank you for joining me on this one. Let me know down in the comments section what you think of my thoughts about Commander Shepard, the icon of Mass Effect 1. I'll be jumping down into the comments section below to keep up the discussion with you all there. I truly appreciate your time. See you on the next one. I should go.